Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video I'm going to test the new Dominant Pro strings, violin strings of course, on my violin. Thank you very much polychord.com who supported me with the strings. I'm also now affiliated with polychord.com, so if you want to support this channel and polychord.com, which is an amazing shop, click the link in the description and you can buy the strings there for a very good price. I didn't find a better price in Europe for those strings. Thank you if you do so, but if you don't, leave at least a like, a thumbs up or a comment, and now enjoy this video. So let's see what is in this package. The new Dominant Pro violin strings. I'm very excited for those strings because I think we waited a long time for a successor for the Dominant strings. Myself, I was never a big fan of the Dominant strings because they didn't fit my violins. But now I read already about those strings and I read that they improved some things that I have a problem with. I will now open this box with you together what is inside. First of all, I really like this box. It's very sturdy, very beautiful also, and if the development will go in this direction, maybe someday they will bring you the strings in a Rolls Royce to your door. That would be nice. Okay, that's also a little bit like an Apple unboxing. It looks like, it feels like. Very sturdy box and very interesting instructions. This alone is really high quality. So we have here, of course, some characteristics of these new strings. Very high level of dynamics. We will later find out in this video how these strings sound, of course. Dress your violin in black. So I guess those strings will have a black winding at the tailpiece, which is nice. It can look nice. So we have here different options of E strings, but for now I think it is the tin E string because the gold, platinum, and I think there's another option. No, okay, there are these three options, I guess, but those two will come later. Those two are not yet released. I think they are available in July or June this year. Oh, maybe this is the fourth. Yes, this is the fourth E string, and here we have the tendency to whistle. So they give us now, in the beginning, the string with the least tendency to whistle. So we have to wait until summer when we want a whistling E string. Nice. On the A string, we have an aluminum winding. Actually, I'm a fan of aluminum windings because they have a good projection and really good stability under the bow. The most A strings are aluminum wound anyways. This is still another option for the A string, I guess, which is steel core. So with this Dominant Pro set, I have the feeling that they want to cover all the possibilities of strings you can think of for your violin. For example, you get a synthetic core A string and a steel core A string, and 4 different options for the E string. So here we have again an A string comparison, the corrosion resistance and also the modulation capacity. And here we can see the aluminum A string has more modulation capacity due to its synthetic core, of course, because the other string is with a steel core. Of course, you can check all these informations on the homepage of Thomastik Infeld, but you also can check the details on polychord.com. We have here the D string. The D string is a silver D string, and there's an option for an aluminum D string. I am personally a fan of the aluminum D string, and we will see if the set will have the aluminum D string, but I think it's the silver D string. But they write about the silver alloy that they combined the advantages of a silver string with those of an aluminum string. So they know that the silver string usually have disadvantages, and they try to compensate those disadvantages and make the playability of the silver string more like an aluminum string maybe. So let's see how this silver string will perform, because I think I have this one in the box right here. We have to see this chart right here. D string comparison, bow noise. The silver D, yes, it has less bow noise. I don't know how accurate this chart is, but actually bow noise is not a bad thing in my opinion. And this chart, I feel like this describes very much my problem, what I have with silver D strings, because silver D strings tend to sound very round and very nice in the living room. But if you want to project in this register on the violin, I actually like a little bit of edge to the string. And as we can see here, what they describe as bow noise could also be described as overtones, or so the silver D will not have so much edge to the bow sound, or to the not so much noise to the sound. As I said before, I actually prefer a little bit of noise on the D string. Metallic component, I don't know if they mean the sound-wise. I think so, because of course this for the player, this chart. The silver D also has a lower metallic component in the sound than the aluminum D. That's actually what I talked about right here as well, but here it's even more difference. So we can expect the silver D to sound very round, and let's see if it projects well. Of course, I'm not playing in an ensemble right now. I also don't play a big hall or something. I can only try to tell from my experience if I think this will project or not. So, and we have the G string. No interesting chart for that, I fear. So the G string is a silver G string, which I like. One of my preferred strings, the Eva Perazzi Gold. I always take the silver G. It's a little bit brighter sound than a gold G string. Here's a slight increased tension. It also offers increased resistance to bow pressure without putting too much strain on the instrument. So I guess the pressure is in the medium range. And also we have here, it's all the medium set. Here it says medium. So we can expect to later get a little bit more variety. As we know from the original dominant strings, there are very many different varieties. So let's see what I got here. Okay, I got the E, which is carbon steel tin plated. They say explicitly that the E string ball is removable. I don't play with the E string ball, but with the sling end, so I have to remove this ball. This is the A string, DPO2. As expected, we have here the synthetic core A string aluminum wound. The D string should be also the silver version. Let's see. Yes, silver wound. Okay, D string. And this is also silver. So we have here a silver, aluminum A string and tin E string, or tin coated E string. Of course, this is also carbon steel. So let's see and put them on the violin and see how that looks like. To start this off, I will give you a little bit of a reference. And this reference might be a little bit odd, because I give you a reference of those, I think, half a year old Eva Perazzi Gold string set, so that you know how my violin sounds. So here it is, the first tune-up of the Dominant Pro strings. It feels like a part of history. This is a new era, the beginning of a new era, because the dominant strings have been along for such a long time, and now there's a new version of them. So let's dive into this new era. Okay, first impression is the playability is very good. I will now play you the G major scale so that you have a direct comparison of the sound. That is very interesting. I already noticed some differences which are typical for Thomastik Infeld strings. For example, they need you to have a little bit of a faster bow. If you bow too slowly, you suppress the sound very quickly, which is not the case with from the material standpoint, harder strings from Pirastro. For example, Eva Perazzi or Eva Perazzi Gold are from the material very stiff. I think that has to do a little bit with that. Those strings feel very flexible, which is good, and also it seems to be the concept of Thomastik Infeld strings, which produces a very warm and round sound. Also, depending on the material, there's a little bit edge to the sound. In general, I would say the playability is for the bow closer to the bridge, because you can break the sound of the string easier than you can break the sound of the string when you, for example, compare it with the Efa Gold strings. I had to switch out the microphones because my lavalier microphone was clipping a bit when I played. So I switched now to my Zoom microphone, which is here like a half a meter away from me. And this is also the same microphone I used for my other string testing videos. It's now 4 days later because 2 times I recorded this video with a lavalier microphone and the sound was really just bad and clipping. You should always give your strings some time, like 4 days or 2 weeks even, before you judge them in depth. I will now go through all the strings and tell you my opinion and play some notes on them. So at first I play some notes on the G string. I think you could hear that my wolf note around the C is quite hearable, but I would say with other strings it's even worse. Sound-wise, I'm also quite pleased. In the beginning I was a little bit worried about the lack of focus of these strings because they are designed to have a more broad sound and a more broad spectrum of application, of course, also. In the beginning I was a little bit missing the focus and the higher overtones on the G and also on the D string, which we will come to later. But now, after I played them for a few days, I really enjoy that you can dig into the string much deeper than, for example, with the Efa Gold, which have a more one-dimensional sound. And also the Efa Gold, which are great strings, I would maybe even prefer them to these strings just for their characteristics. But the Efa Gold strings color your instrument quite much, so they bring their own color to your violin. With the Thomastik Infeld strings in general, I feel that they are much less coloring, and that goes well with very good instruments, of course. If you have a good instrument and put on good sounding strings, which are not very much coloring strings, I think that can be a very good combination. In general, the dominant strings and the dominant pro strings and also the PE, the Peter Infeld strings, are much less coloring than most of the strings I know from Pirastro. I would say the lack of focus a little bit vanished after a few days. Also because I get accustomed to those strings. Because you have to change your playing habits a little bit when you have a new set of strings on your violin. The contact point is a little bit different. The reaction to pressure is a little bit different. I would say that these strings take a little less pressure than the Efa Gold that I had on before. But that would be expected because those strings are not designed to project to the same extent that the Efa Gold or Efa strings are designed to project. Or maybe other strings from Thomastik Infeld too, like the Vision Titanium Solo strings, which I will test later this year. So these strings are more on the broader and warmer spectrum and coming from the direction where the dominant strings are placed, which are strings which originally should be a substitute for wound gut strings. So that we have to keep in mind, that we're coming here from a direction or from a series of strings now that was designed to imitate the gut sounding, like playability and sound. And I think those strings do a great job in that direction. When we talk about gut, of course, we have to talk about tuning stability. And with synthetic core strings, the tuning stability is much better. Even after 4 days, the strings stay in tune very well. And don't detune when you warm up on the violin too much. I expect them in 1 week or 2 to be completely stable. Let's go to the D string and discuss about the D string a little bit. Okay, I don't even know if I played that correctly. I never played this concerto, but I will now play a simple scale. Who even plays up there on the fingerboard on the D string? I don't know. But for me, the string sounds really different than I know from the Peter Infeld set from Thomastik Infeld, and also different to the Eva Pirazzi Gold D string. It has a lot of characteristics which are very similar to the Peter Infeld string, which is the really low tension feeling under the left hand, but what is improved in comparison to the Peter Infeld strings is that the D string can take much more weight from the bow, which is not the case with the Peter Infeld D string, which I would still suggest to be one of the best sounding D strings out there. But the Peter Infeld D string had the problem that you have to adjust even inside the set when you play the whole Peter Infeld set, your contact point on the D string a little bit to the bridge, because the string is so soft and vibrates so wide because of the soft material, I guess, that you can break the sound very easily. Okay, let's go to the A string. That was the famous meditation on the A string from Massenet. For me, A strings are always a little bit of a difficult string to judge, because I'm already very pleased when the string functions quite well in the upper registers, let's say third or fourth position and up. And I would say the string does a very good job up there. And also in the first position, we have a great sound. For me, the first position on the A string is always a little bit haunted with the wolf note, like on the C. But with this string, the C sounds actually quite round and the response is very great. I would say this A string is more on the warmer side, which fits actually the style of the G and the D string quite much, and we will see that it's also a good transition to the E string, which is also more on the a little bit warmer side than on the brilliant side. I don't think there's much to say about the A string. It's the synthetic core version, of course, not the steel A version, and it leans a little bit to the warmer side as well as the characterization from Thomastik Infeld of the dominant pro string says already. It's more on the broader spectrum, on the more round sound and more mellow sound for an A string. So let's come to the E string, which is the tin-plated steel E string version. Okay, so at first I wasn't so amazed by this E string because it is very different to my favorite E string of the Eva Pirazzi Gold set. After a few days and after a few days of getting accustomed to those strings, I really like this E string. It is very well playable throughout the positions. At the same time, it lacks a little bit of the power and cutting edge, like a knife. You can't cut so well through with this sound. But on the other hand, we are musicians, we want a well-sounding instrument, and it has a very well sound, quite a glooming, like shining sound in the upper registers, and for the first position the E string sounds incredible mellow. So to put it in a nutshell and to sum it up for the whole set, I would say the whole set has a really charming character while sounding quite modern as well. Maybe the initial dominant strings are a little bit, I wouldn't say outdated, but maybe other strings have already surpassed them in the qualities serving the modern violinist who has to compete always with other instruments which also play mostly synthetic core strings. If the dominant strings are on the very broad spectrum, this set is a step up, exactly like Thomastik Infeld say in their prospect to the strings. It is very much leaning to the dominant strings characteristics, which is more on the broader side. This comes always with a more colorful spectrum of sound possibilities on your instrument. If you have a cutting edge string, like for example the Eva Pirazzi regular strings, you often end up, especially after some months of playing them, with a very one-dimensional sound. So I don't feel this happening with the Peter Infeld strings so much, but we have to find out this after a few months, of course. Maybe you can follow my Instagram. I will post there some updates later when I played the strings for some months. I would say overall the set, great playability, great sound spectrum. I can't wait to explore them further the next weeks and play a little bit more on them and get accustomed to them as well, because I feel like there's a very big potential in the strings. Of course, I am not able to play in an ensemble right now, so I can't test them how high I would project in an ensemble, for example, or if it would fit in an ensemble, but I can think if the instrument sound is very nice and open, it will always have some projecting qualities, especially in a hall, and if you play them correctly. So I don't worry about that too much. Maybe a little bit worried I would be with the E string, but that can be fixed when we later get the more advanced material E strings which come out this summer from the Thomastik Infeld Dominant Pro set. But also I maybe test the strings with the Eva Pirazzi Gold E string, which is my favorite E string. I think the set is a very round thing and very well thought out. The playability of all strings is really great. I think the sound colors blend also very good. We have a very balanced sound over all strings. I will now play one scale for you again so that you can hear that. I hope you find this video helpful. If you do so, leave a like and a comment. Big thanks go out to polychord.com who sent me those strings for free. I'm also now affiliated with polychord.com. If you are in Europe and if you decide to buy the Dominant Pro strings, maybe to test it out, if you click on the link in the description and buy from there for a very, very good price. I think it's under 70 euros, which is actually the cheapest I could find in the internet right now. You support the channel as well as polychord.com, which is an amazing partner for this channel over the years and made all this string testing videos possible. So that's it for now. I'm very much looking forward to practice on the strings a little bit more, and I will keep you updated, as I said, on my Instagram, and also you can check out my Facebook page where you can find my Instagram stories as well, because I share it there as well. So have fun practicing, see you in the next video, and take care. Bye bye.